Oh my gosh, guys, look. Today's Friday, right? I had one class, and we didn't do nothing in it except just talk about random stuff. But it was 3 hours long. And dude, my brain is already fried. Is this what the rest of college is going to be like? Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Wong, and welcome to another episode of the This Week in Shenanigans podcast. So, this episode is a milestone, and the reason for that being that this is the first full-length episode of the podcast that I will be recording and producing from the dorm in Riverside. Now, about that, before we get into the episode, I do want to apologize. I am still figuring out how to make my setup work. So you're going to hear a lot of that fuzziness in the background. I'm sure you hear it now, in between my sentences. Yeah, did you hear that? I'm trying to figure out my way around it, but I don't know. I haven't figured out anything yet. The other thing, too, is that for whatever reason, I'm using the same microphone as I did before to record this podcast, but for whatever reason, when I set it up here, it's hypersensitive to all sorts of random sounds, in the background. Here, let me give you an example. My microphone isn't even pointed anywhere near my mouse, and yet, you heard that? It could pick it up like scraping against the table, even if it's such a small sound and it's not even in the direction of the mic. It's weird. I'm still trying to figure out the whole ins and outs of the setup, but I'm sure it shouldn't be too hard to figure it all out. But enough yapping. Let's get into the content of today's episode, starting with the news. This Week in Shenanigans presents the news of the week. All right, first news story of the day, and you guys are going to love this one. This is some very shenanigan-worthy news out of Albania. The government of that country has decided to appoint the world's first AI government minister. That's right, an AI was appointed to a very high government position. Her name is Diela, and according to the Prime Minister of Albania, who fortunately is a human, he says that this AI will be responsible for all public procurement. Basically, what that means is this AI will evaluate tenders and have the right to hire talents here from all over the world while breaking down the fear of prejudice and rigidity of the administration, in the words of the Albanian Prime Minister. Now, I guess I could sort of understand the reasoning behind this. Albania has long been struggling with corruption, particularly in public administration. And the idea is that when you hire a robot to do that job for you, it's going to be free of all prejudice or desire for greed and stuff like that. But even outside of that, it's still just, in my opinion, it's still just so weird that you're willing to put an AI in that kind of position, a few weeks ago, we talked about how people were willing to date their AIs, and now there's an AI in government? I don't know, don't get me wrong, I still think there's a lot of good things about AI, but you're not gonna get those good benefits when you're just letting AI take over your lives. We actually talked about that in my class today, AI is another tool that humans can use. Think of it like medicine. It's good when you use it correctly, but when you use it incorrectly, then it causes a multitude of bad things. Does it mean AI in itself is bad? No, but when you use it like this, that's when I'm I don't know, man. This is just so strange. Moving on to our next little segment of news. On Friday, September 26th, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the UN, and he had some interesting things to say about the war between Israel and Gaza, which has been ongoing for nearly 3 years now. For context, a lot of countries in the world have voiced their support for the establishment and full UN recognition of a Palestinian state, independent from Israel or any other nation in the vicinity. Now, thing is, Prime Minister Netanyahu didn't exactly like that idea. During his UN address on Friday, he vowed to, quote, finish the job in Gaza, and said that the recognition of a Palestinian state was, quote, insane, as several delegates walked out of his address, like when he started talking. Now, according to Netanyahu, the whole point of this operation is to bring back the Israeli hostages that are still trapped in Gaza. But there's a lot of concern amongst other people in the world that he's not going to stop with just doing that. A lot of people out there believe that he wants to annex Palestinian territories into Israeli territory. Now, President Trump has said that he will try to stop Netanyahu from doing such a thing, but in my opinion, I think that there is a growing rift between Trump and Netanyahu, or Netanyahu and the rest of the world for that matter. The point is, this continues to be a very complex, bad situation in which a lot of people are going to get hurt. Again, I just want to remind y'all that the point of this show isn't to sway your views one way or another. I feel like I have to say that every time I talk about a very controversial issue coming into the show. I'm not trying to tell you to be pro-Palestine or pro-Israel or anything like that. That's not my job. Again, I'm just trying to tell you exactly what's going on. This is the facts. Do with them what you will. Yeah, this is why I don't have a good time, and this is why I don't enjoy talking about the news. But it's just one of those things that you just kind of got to do. All right. Well, I guess we should just move on to sports then. It's time for Shenanigans Sports. Well, it has been a very, very busy week in the sports world, and it continues to be busy going into the weekend. I think the biggest news on sports fans' minds right now is the approach of the MLB postseason. The bracket is almost complete, and so many different teams have clinched the postseason since our last episode a week ago. First, let's talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. They have already secured a postseason spot for some time, but now they doubled down. They secured their third straight National League Central Division title. This earns them a bye in the first round, meaning that they don't have to play in the wild card round. They automatically advance, and they will now be playing for the National League's overall number one seed. Next, let's take it up to our neighbors to the north. The Toronto Blue Jays have become the first American League team to secure a postseason berth with a win over the Kansas City Royals on Sunday. Right now, they are tied with the New York Yankees for the first place spot in their division, the AL East. And the division winner there will earn a bye week. After that, on Monday, the San Diego Padres clinched their fourth postseason trip in 6 years with a walk-off win over the Brewers on Monday. They are bound to face the Chicago Cubs in the Wild Card Series. On Tuesday, The Seattle Mariners clinched their first postseason appearance since 2022 with a 9-2 win on Wednesday. This is also their first division title for the American League West since 2001, and they have earned a first-round bye. In this game as well, the phenomenal catcher, Cal Raleigh, hit his 59th and 60th home runs. His legend grows, and he keeps progressing the record for most home runs by a catcher in a single season. Man, this guy is special, and all we can do now is wait and see who will be the American League MVP. Will it be him, or will it be the Yankees' Aaron Judge? Who really knows at this point? I guess we'll find out sooner or later. Back to talking about the postseason. Speaking of the New York Yankees, they became the second American League team to clinch a playoff spot with a walk-off win over the Chicago White Sox on Tuesday. Like I said earlier, they're tied with the Toronto Blue Jays for first place in the American League East, and the division winner will win a bye. And finally, wrapping it up, we'll talk about the Dodgers. I released a little mini shenanigan alert for you guys last Saturday, letting y'all know that they did, in fact, clinch a postseason appearance, but with a win on Thursday over the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers clinched the National League West title for the 12th time in the past 13 years. They will hold the number 3 seed in the National League playoff bracket, and they will host whoever happens to be the number 6 seed. There are only a few more short days of the MLB regular season remaining. In fact, by the time you hear this episode on Saturday, September 27th, there will only be one more day. Sunday, September 28th is the final day of the MLB regular season. By then, we will know exactly who's going to be in the playoffs. And postseason baseball, October baseball as they call it, is so exciting. I can't wait to watch it as we move toward the World Series in only about a month now. Next up in sports, let's talk about the Ryder Cup. So for those of you who don't follow golf, the Ryder Cup is an event that takes place once every 2 years, where a team of American All-Stars compete against a team of European All-Stars in a sort of match tournament format. So this weekend is the 2025 edition of the tournament, and the rosters for both the United States and Europe are stacked as always. So, I am recording this on Friday, September 26th, and as of now, one day of the Ryder Cup has been completed. It's a 3-day event, by the way. It runs from Friday till Sunday. And the United States is not doing too well, surprisingly enough. So let me explain to you the format of scoring for this tournament. So basically, it's a match play golf competition where you can win 28 points that are available across 28 matches. Teams earn 1 point for winning a match and a half point for a tie. The first team to accumulate 14.5 points wins the cup, or retains it if they were the previous champions and the match ends in a 14-14 tie. Now, the U.S., like I said, did not have a very good first day. As of the end of competition on Friday, the Europeans had a 5.5 to 2.5 lead going into Saturday. That is a pretty big deficit. Again, each match is worth 1 point, so this is a 3-match deficit. Perhaps the biggest story out of this is the biggest American golf stars, Scottie Scheffler, who is currently ranked as the number 1 golfer in the world, and Bryson DeChambeau lost both of their matches. In fact, in the case of Scottie Scheffler, his deficits were so large that his opponent clinched the win for the match before even reaching the 17th hole in both of his matches, actually. He is the first number 1 ranked player in the world since Tiger was back in 2002 to lose both of his matches on the opening day of the Ryder Cup. Again, it's only 1 day. There's 2 more to go. Anything can happen. But in any case, this is a very poor showing by the top American golfers. Lastly, there hasn't been that much football news of note that's been going on since the last time I recorded an episode, but I did want to give you guys a few matchups to look forward to as we get into the weekend. The first is the Tennessee Titans visiting the Houston Texans. Now, most people unanimously picked the Texans to win this game. And I mean, I can understand that. We've previously known their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, to be a very good young star. He was the 2023 Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he's got a great roster around him. Obviously, they're dealing with some injuries. Tank Dell had a very vicious injury at the end of the 2024 season that's expected to sideline him for this entire year. And running back Joe Mixon is still going to be out for a little while, but they have Nick Chubb at the running back. He's not bad at all. They got Nico Collins, great wide receiver there. But here's the problem that I have with the Houston Texans. They don't have an offensive line. And since their offensive line that they have is just not good at all, no one's protecting C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, and you can't expect him to play well at all when you just don't have good protection up front like that. The Houston Texans are currently 0-3, and they are going to play against the Tennessee Titans, who are being led by the young Cam Ward, the first overall pick in this most previous NFL draft. The Titans' defense is all right. Their offense is still all right. But I think that, honestly, they'll be able to stun the Texans because the Texans just are not in a good place at all right now. Second matchup I want to get into is the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Tampa to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, no matter how good the Eagles seem to be, the Buccaneers always seem to have their number. Last year, in Week 4, the Buccaneers defeated the Eagles in blowout fashion. In the 2023 playoffs, the Buccaneers defeated the Eagles in blowout fashion. And also in the 2021 playoffs, the Buccaneers defeated the Eagles. They're such a tough team to beat, and they have a pretty good roster. Baker Mayfield's a great quarterback. Bucky Irving is a very skilled young running back in his second year. And their first-round pick from this previous draft, Emeka Egbuka, is quickly solidifying a very strong case for him to be this year's Offensive Rookie of the Year. He is phenomenal. And their defense definitely ain't that bad either. However, the Eagles, obviously, their defense is as good as it gets. A mix of seasoned veterans and young talent, including the second-round safety, Andrew Makuba, out of the University of Tennessee. However, their offense has been showing no signs of life. They have not really been producing at all. Their receivers haven't been doing much work. Their star running back, Saquon Barkley, hasn't been getting much work either. They only really started to come alive in the second half of their Week 3 matchup against the LA Rams this past Sunday. But I don't think one half of football is enough to determine that they're out of their early season slump yet. So for that reason, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeating the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Finally, the last matchup I want to talk about is one out of two games in the Monday night doubleheader this weekend, where the New York Jets travel down to Miami to take on the Miami Dolphins. Miami, on paper, is a good team. They have a good quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. They have two good receivers, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They have a good running back, Devon Achane. But they lost a lot of defensive pieces in the offseason. And in terms of their offense, they just haven't been producing at all. They have a lot of talent on their roster, and yet it never seems to show, as the Dolphins are currently 0-3 on the season. They are going to go face off against the New York Jets. Now, if you know anything about football, you'd probably associate the Jets with failure, constant disappointment, and a bunch of other negative superlatives. but the Jets have actually been looking not that bad at all. They have pretty good offensive weapons. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. Their two main offensive weapons, and their defense is really, really good. They also have a new quarterback, Justin Fields, the former 2021 first-round pick out of Ohio State University. In Week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he suffered a concussion, which had him sidelined for a while. Apparently, he did practice in full on Thursday, but his status for Monday's game is still uncertain. If he does come back, though, then that would be huge. The Jets put up a really great showing against the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 1, and Justin Fields was a huge part of that. So hopefully he will be back, and we'll get to see a huge game out of him. Anyways, either way, though, I do have the New York Jets beating the Miami Dolphins. Now, finally, let's move on to the wild card of the week. It's time for wild card of the week. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the phenomenon of the Florida man. Or nowadays, there's a lot of Florida women stories going around too. But in case you didn't know, the state of Florida has an unusual aptitude for generating lots of interesting headlines, should we say, about the activities that its residents engage in. And in case you have no idea what the heck I'm talking about, I'm going to spend this wildcard segment just reading off a bunch of these headlines, and so that we can just kind of laugh about it. All right, let's get started. Recently in Florida Man stories, Florida man arrested for pooping on possum in public. Florida woman calls 911 over stolen weed, which, by the way, is legal in Florida, and is arrested. Florida man robs same Dollar General twice, blames the voices in his head. Florida man dressed as FBI pistol whips haunted house host with a BB gun. Florida man takes 18-wheeler on police chase through multiple counties in Texas. Florida man slashes 27 tires, claims he was sabotaged by secret government exposure. Florida man steals excavator, goes for joyride, crashes into Walmart. Florida man with a tattoo that read, "All gas, no brakes" on his neck, crashes while fleeing police. Florida man gets beat up by the Easter Bunny. Now, these are just some of the more mild Florida man stories I can talk about. Some of these are crazy, and I probably shouldn't talk about them on the show. But if you want to find out more for yourself, visit floridaman.com on the internet. That is floridaman, all one word, .com, and you will find all the headlines of the greatest Florida man stories that people could find. Now, I am going to warn you that the website is very, very heavy in pop-up ads, so just kind of careful what you click on when you go there. Anyways, that is going to do it for this week. I have been your host, Michael Wong, and until the next shenanigans.